Put the mic where your mouth is.
Yes, sir.
All right, man, let's keep it moving. Next topic.
Broadcasting from sea to shining sea, 0400 Across the Street Productions presents the 0400 Across the Street Sports Pod Report. Now, here are your hosts, Derek Little and Jay Taylor. Yes, sir. Today is October the 16th, 2016. We are back in the booth and ready to go. A few big-time games coming up today in the NFL. And what a day college football was yesterday. Some big-time statements from Alabama and Ohio State. You already know, as usual, we have a great show on tap for you. As always, big-time news, big-time show. Can't wait. All that and more on tap for you on this podcast.
Absolutely glad to be back with you. We want to go over what happened yesterday in college football. Some close calls. Some teams did what they were supposed to do. Some teams barely made it by. So we're going to get into that. We're going to talk a little bit of NFL, see what's going on tap today. For the teams today, we were looking at the docket today. 3:00 games look like it's where it's at. So, but let's jump into this review. We'll start off with the number one team in the country, Alabama. They go into Tennessee and they handled their business. Jalen Hurts put the hurt on the Volunteers. They come out with a big win, 49-10. I don't know. I mean, Jalen Hurts. I was telling you earlier, the dude is fast. He looks fast because the way some of those plays he was breaking, some of those read options he was breaking. I think he had like one draw right up the middle and just outran everybody. I'm like, I don't know how you don't account for this guy, but yeah, 12 carries, 132 yards, 3 touchdowns for him. He hurt him with his legs this game.
Yeah, and the thing is that this is the game that I thought that Tennessee was going to be able to stop Alabama, and it really wasn't as close as what the score indicated. Never once did you think that Tennessee was even in this game.
No.
And this is a huge game for Alabama, because now you have this victory. You go in play against Texas A&M next week, and man, your resume now is starting to speak. Alabama showed exactly why they're the number one team, and with that freshman Jalen Hurts, like you said, that kid is super fast.
He's coming along real nice, man.
12 carries, 132 yards, 3 touchdowns on the ground. He's coming around. They have something in this kid.
In Alabama, they got defense. They got a defensive touchdown, and they just suffocated Tennessee as far as that goes. So they did what they were supposed to do, came out with the W. You had another SEC game on the docket. You had Arkansas. Right. They took care of Ole Miss. Chad Kelly did what he could, but couldn't necessarily come out with the win.
They see, Arkansas was able to pound Ole Miss in this game. They were able to hit them with the run. Raleigh Williams had 27 carries for 180 yards. It was just a consistent effort to beat up on Ole Miss. And look, Arkansas is a serious team. They have the 2 losses. But their 2 losses are a good 2 losses, if that even matters. They lost to A&M and they lost to Alabama.
Right.
And both of those teams top 10 teams. So they should move up in the rankings this week, and they're on their way. They're not a bad team. Ole Miss started out on fire. They're starting to come down now. They're starting to come down. They're going to drop back a little bit further. They are now 3-3, 1-2 in the conference. Hopefully they can get it turned around by the end of this season. But Arkansas is definitely on their way up. They, like I said, playing against Alabama showed them the deal. Texas A&M was able to beat up on them. But Arkansas is still, you have that feeling that they're still a good quality team.
Oh, for sure.
And they're right behind these guys.
Yeah, I mean, and that Alabama Texas A&M game next week is going to be, the game of the week,
right?
For everybody to watch. So
Absolutely.
definitely look out for that. But kind of back to this week's game of the week, which it really did turn out to be build
that good
as what it was. You had Ohio State going into Wisconsin, and Wisconsin, they had their foot on Ohio State's neck the whole game.
Yeah, the whole game.
Ohio State couldn't really figure anything out till it got down late in the game. But of course, JT Barrett came through. They went to overtime. They got the W because it was 16-6 for a long time. And then you had kind of both teams scored back to back pretty much.
Right.
They go into overtime and yeah, a nice dime dropped by JT Barrett, Noah Brown
on the push off.
On the push off. The push off was strong.
That push off was a very strong push off.
That was a strong push off.
Man, look, at one point in time, I thought it was Michael Irvin out there.
It did look Michael Irvin-ish.
And the bad thing about it is that you're in Wisconsin, and there was some questionable calls I think that they were giving Wisconsin in this game, but that push off,
that was obvious.
I mean, it was so obvious that the space that he created. Oh, you could drive a truck through.
And I mean, it was a good pass. It was a great pass.
Gosh, it was on the money.
I mean, it was right on point.
And the truth of the matter is that even with the push off, he didn't need that push off.
No, he did. Well, I think he kind of did. I think he needed the momentum to get back around from the push off. The push off helped him get to where he needed to get
whipped back around, right?
Get back around than it did to move the defender off.
The location that JT Barrett placed that ball in.
Perfect.
The defender wasn't going to get to it.
Right. They clearly practiced that push off in practice.
Yeah.
Let me get a spring off of you. You know what I'm saying? So I can get that good turnaround, bam, right there.
Yeah, he definitely hit him, and you got to give credit to Ohio State. They didn't quit.
They didn't quit.
You're up there in Madison, and look, here's the one thing that kind of concerns me. Okay, Corey Clement, 25 carries, 164 yards on the ground against Ohio State. That looks like that may be, and I understand that every team doesn't have the ability that Wisconsin has. But what we saw was Ohio State played against Indiana last week. Okay, and Indiana was able to do some things against them, and Ohio State had to pull it out late. They turned it on there in the I think third and fourth quarter. Right. But Indiana was able to stick with them.
Yeah.
And Wisconsin showed, look, their defense is serious, but their running game is serious also. Coming up.
No doubt.
You got Penn State, you got Northwestern, you got Nebraska, you finish up with Michigan State and Michigan.
Yeah.
Those are going to be some teams that try to put the ball on the ground against Ohio State. Ohio State is going to definitely have to fix that run defense. I know that they're one of the only teams that are ranked in the top 10 in offense and defense. But last night you saw the way that Wisconsin was dominating the game and basically dictating the game on the ground.
For sure. Yeah, it was a gutsy win by Ohio State. Much props to them coming out with the W in overtime. Wisconsin, tough loss for those guys because it was within their grasp to get that game.
Right.
And you predicted yesterday that they would actually win. So, but yeah, close enough, but not close enough. Close, but not close enough.
Absolutely, they had it. They had that game. Yeah. They and then let's talk about that last play of overtime. I don't care if you're getting pressure from wherever, and I understand. Look, at the end of the game, on a fourth down in overtime where you have to score a touchdown, you got to let that ball go.
Yeah, you do.
And I understand. Look, he's a freshman, Hornibrook, but at the end of the day, you got to let that ball go. Let your receivers make a play on it. If it gets picked off, it gets picked off. But guess what? You can't just sit there and end the game eating the ball.
Yeah, you can't. You're right. Things that they'll learn. They'll learn with time.
They will learn. They will learn.
We expect to see, we always talk about, when you talk about the Big Ten, Ohio State and Michigan and everybody else, you got Michigan State up in there sometimes, there's some teams that bounce up and down in the conversation, but Wisconsin looks to be a team that's going to keep itself there for quite some time.
Absolutely. Look, let's talk about Baylor. Okay, Baylor goes and gets a victory against Kansas. Kansas is 1-5, not a significant victory, but they win 49-7.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Baylor is quietly a 6-0 team, 3-0 in the Big 12. Okay, and they're moving themselves into this top 10. Will they have the competition to keep them there? And competition, because look, they have Oklahoma and they have West Virginia.
In a couple
okay,
weeks. Okay, you got Texas, which is a big
you have
game
some
in
ranked
Texas.
games, right?
But yeah, with the, I mean, we've seen this before,
right?
Where teams,
TCU and Baylor,
yeah.
But
I don't necessarily think they're going to. They're going to move up in the rankings, probably one spot,
right?
You know.
Well, I mean, look.
Honestly,
based
I don't
on
know
how
who's
Oklahoma and West Virginia does. Say that again.
Who's moving down
out of that top?
Because you had, I think, the 1 and 2.
Well, you're gonna have Wisconsin move down. You're gonna have Tennessee move down. Okay.
Tennessee move down. You're right.
You're gonna have those teams move down. Look. Don't be surprised if
I don't
you
necessarily
may get a
expect
little
Wisconsin to move out of the top 10 though. I think
here's the thing. The teams
I know
that's
it's 2
behind them,
back-to-back losses, but I don't know.
the teams that's behind them, though. Okay, Tennessee and Nebraska. Tennessee will go back. Okay, Wisconsin shouldn't fall that far. You know, I think those are 2 great losses that they have. Again, if that is the case,
right?
But they'll fall out of the top 10. Nebraska will go for it. I think Baylor will go for it. And you know, look, you look at Ole Miss, which was number 12. They lost, so that could be a landing spot for Wisconsin. So I mean, you're gonna have some shakeup. Now, the thing is that's going to be interesting is exactly what do you do at the top, because Michigan, Washington were off this week. You know,
right.
So what do you do at the top?
There's no reason to move them right now. I mean, you
Texas
got Nebraska,
A&M was off
move
this week
up.
as well.
You got
so your top 6 stays the same.
Yeah.
I could totally see that.
They do. I mean, especially with the matchup coming up next week with A&M and Alabama, I don't see any reason to shuffle anything in the top 6.
What about that Clemson close game? No. You don't think they should fall? You don't think they should at least switch with Michigan or even Washington with that close game against NC State? Now, NC State, look,
still undefeated.
They're still undefeated, but it was a close game. And think about what we were saying about some of these games.
Should Ohio State drop?
Look at who they played. Look at who they played, though. They played against a top 10 team. And they got a victory on the road in a place that's very hard to get a victory.
Well, I mean, you got Nebraska moving up.
Look at Alabama.
Down. You got Baylor; they'll probably move up.
Right.
Like you said, Ole Miss lost, so they could move up.
Right.
Baylor, but you look at their schedule. When the BCS comes out, I don't know how kind they're going to be to them. That's all I'm saying.
The thing is that when that BCS does come out, it's going to be some hurt feelings.
For sure.
And what happens every year, and this is what we're starting to see, when the BCS comes out, it really does determine who's going to play who at the beginning of next year.
Yep.
Because teams start to go back and look at that and say, well, we could have played against a ranked team here, or we can travel now to play against this team if they're projected to be good next year. I mean, you think about that Alabama USC game, that's a very good game.
Oh, it was a great game.
But the thing is that USC is nowhere to be found now.
Well, they got a W over Arizona this past weekend.
Right.
But yeah, I get what you're
saying. Look at Wisconsin and LSU. Wisconsin moves up in the rankings because they beat a number 5 LSU team, and LSU now is nowhere to be found.
Right.
Notre Dame. I mean, you have some teams that have fallen out of the top 25 that are nowhere to be found. That look like they might be in the witness protection program.
But, at the top, when you talk about the top 4, all right, you had Clemson doing what they did last year, okay? You got Alabama, Ohio State, obviously, and you got Michigan, who was steady on the come up with Harbaugh out there, really turning that program around. Those 4 at the top, there's really no surprise there.
Right.
All right. Now, Washington, that's a little like, wow, okay. coming up at 5. And Texas A&M, I wouldn't have expected them to be where they're at right now.
Right.
So I don't really necessarily, and looking beyond that, I don't necessarily see anybody else cracking that top 6, even with the bye weeks.
Yeah, it's like